and like the rollout plan for them. Um, some folks will also share maybe some um, notes about like, what the plan is currently so far and timelines and like how did the team at Celestia Lab, the core and app team and Celestia Node anticipate the rollout. Um, Before that, we can start with like a roll call. On the consensus side, I believe we have representative from core and app team at Celestia Labs.
Yep.
I'm here and I see Vitul and I think Colm as well.
Welcome. Anyone from Strangelove? Nope. IBC team? I don't see anyone. Binary builders? I don't see Marco. Informal? And I don't see Ethan. From the DA side, Celestia Node?
Raman's here. I think Flip is here too.
Yep.
Welcome, welcome. And from Iger, I believe.
Yeah, I'm here.
Welcome, welcome. Okay, so I think the first topic we've got to talk about is the lemongrass update. So currently, if we go to CIP number 17, the specification for lemongrass hard fork is final. And all these CIPs are considered final. Everything went through rough consensus, and currently the engineering team is working on the rollout and stuff, including the audits and stuff. Ratul, I wonder if this would be a good time to go over like everything that you kind of wrote down and stuff. I have it open, but if you want to share your screen instead, and if you want to talk about it, it's up to you.
Sure. I can share my screen. I feel like let
Go for it.
me see. Oh, it says disabled screen sharing, but I can roughly talk about the three dates that we kind of like have in mind.
Can you try again? We made you co-host, so you should be
Okay,
able to share screen. Okay.
cool. Can you see this perhaps?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So right now we're kind of in this phase where we're getting a release candidate of Celestia app. Maybe I can pull this up as well. A release candidate of Celestia app 2.0 audited by Informal Systems. And we expect that to finish in about 2 or so weeks. And then we're going to address findings up until the end of June. Then the next step is honestly deploying to Arabica and pending that success Mocha. So we have some like rough dates here. These are all, maybe moved if we uncover issues. And then after we deploy to Arabica, simulate the hard fork, do the same on Mocha, then eventually we'll get to mainnet. So optimistically, this is looking in like August 1st-ish timeline. That's really all I had dates-wise. The audit's still going well so far. And yeah, that's about it.
Sounds good. I'll also go over the rollout plan from our side in terms of coordination. That kind of goes in line with the core dev's timeline for software releases. Okay, so we created this doc just to try to cover everyone that is a stakeholder in Celestia so far when it comes to hard forks. So far we can cover custodian, exchanges, validators, rollup, graph partners, node operators, blockstream, and settlement layers. Core developers, as Ratul showed with like the rollout plan, security and DevOps team as it relates to testing anything and orchestrating a hard fork on a private testnet prior to us as a whole community coordinating an upgrade on Arabica, which is already, I believe, it already being done in parallel, but we potentially want to add a few more kind of tests to it. The software client will be Celestia Core and Apps, Celestia Node, and Blockstream Relayer. I'm not sure if we should include IBC relayers, like, do these need to be upgraded? I defer to the core devs on this.
That's a good question. The IBC relayers are like separate binaries, so my immediate reaction is that their versioning is like totally unrelated. So yeah, people shouldn't need to update their IBC relayers.
So the IBC relayer would work whether we have like pre and post hard fork, right?
Right. Like the latest Hermes relayer or Go relayer should work pre and post. Obviously, we should test that on testnets before mainnet.
Okay, that sounds good. I'm just gonna add it just for the sake of testing, even if like we don't think it's needed. At least it's better to cover all your vectors. I think the Odyssey already covered. You have more context than us and about the software client. For testing, and I believe I'm not sure if I saw. Yeah, I saw Viet here, and I'd love to pick your brain on this. So currently, the core dev, there's a testnet called Robusta. I mean, some of us are aware here from the Celestia Labs team, but like for anyone who's not aware, there's Robusta, which is like an internal kind of testing environment prior to it, anything hitting Arabica. Via, I kind of scoped out 4 different rollup frameworks that we potentially want to deploy on Robusta. I don't know if Rocket is needed because I don't believe there's a version yet that's been released that's for mainnet, or rather, the way to think about it is there's no Rocket rollup currently deployed on mainnet, so I'm not sure if this is needed for deployment, for testing. But like we definitely have an Astria rollup, which is Forma. There's Optimism rollup and Arbitrum rollup already. I believe the majority is Optimism rollup, but then with Arbitrum rollup, I believe there is some team that might be want to deploy soon, prior to the hard fork activating. So I deem Arbitrum worth testing. Now, my question is, given the relationship with RAS partners, if we just deploy Robusta with like all the changes, would a RAS partner be able to deploy like an OP stack rollup, or an Arbitrum rollup and connect it to Robusta for testing, like maybe Conduit or Caldera? Yeah, go ahead, Bia.
Hey everyone, I hope you can hear me. So we definitely miss here 2 partners to add, or I would say, yeah, 2 partners. First one is Dimension, as they have role apps on
Oh,
testnet
yeah.
and production. We need to add them. I totally forgot about that when we were talking internally.
That's
And the
that's
second
a good
team,
call out. Yeah.
yeah, and the
Yeah.
second team, last but not least, is Initia with their militias. They're also on testnet, and some of them will go to mainnet eventually. So we need to take care of that too, which in general, yeah, creates pretty much a pack.
I have a
Uh,
question. For Initia, what kind of rollup framework do they use? Good, if we can abstract it, I think that might be easy, but I'm curious.
so they're using this interwoven rollup design with militias, this mini VMs, mini move VMs, and mini wasms, and we just need to
Okay,
contact them
okay,
because they are using Celestia DA.
okay. That's good. That's a good call out. Um, that's good to know. And do you think like maybe Conduit or Caldera or maybe Gelato, if we give them Robusta like RPC endpoints and stuff, they would be able to deploy like let's say an Arbitrum rollup that uses let's say Sepolia for the smart contract deployment, but it connects to Robusta DA layer testnet, whatever.
I think we need to ask each RAS team specifically if they're committed to that. If let's say we have at least the majority of RAS partners, then we should be pretty good. Otherwise, I don't know
Yeah,
why we should be involved.
I mean, it's just more to minimize any kind of DevOps related work that we're doing, because we'll be focusing on Robusta prior to Arabica. So what I'm curious about is just to minimize like the Celestial Lab team having to deploy different types of rollup framework for the sake of testing, if a RAS partner would be able to help and stuff, which that's like the reason for that question.
Yeah, we just need to ask around. Yes, right now we have no soft
Okay.
commitments whatsoever.
Okay, maybe we can start with Conduit, given Conduit has the majority of rollups deployed.
I just have a question here. Is Robusta going to be semi-public then? Like, are we going to work with people and give them sort of like the necessary like tokens and support they need to actually test their rollup framework to make sure it's still compatible with Robusta?
I wouldn't, yeah, oh yeah, I wouldn't call it like public, like maybe just like public just for the RAS partner. If one RAS partner wants to deploy like an Arbitrum and Optimism type rollups, and then we can orchestrate a hard fork on Robusta like relatively quickly and just see what happens with the rollup, just for like, you know, to confirm that there's no issues there. It kind of saved us a lot of time just for these kind of parameters. But I don't think the plan would be to make it public or anything like that. It would just be for, like, let's say Conway will just Celestia Lab can share the RPC endpoint with Conduit directly if they're willing to deploy rollups.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering whether like the Celestia Lab engineers are going to be deploying these rollups or just the folks that like the partners we're working with.
Yeah, the ask is for Conduit to deploy the rollup, not the Celestia Lab engineers. So that can save everyone a lot of time.
I see. Because I assumed Arabica would have the same thing, which is like now it's public and we're going to perform an upgrade. And then if you're interested in making sure that your rollup framework is still compatible, then you can follow along.
Exactly. The only problem is with Arabica, once you upgrade it, right? So if anything goes wrong and you have to fix something, it's, you know, you would have to do another hard fork on Arabica after. Whereas if you just quickly test it with Robusta, you can iron out a lot of bugs before you do something that's publicly used by developers and other folks, because you get that one shot.
So this is like a semi-public ephemeral upgrade like network.
Yeah, that would be the Robusta scope. Other things are, I'm not sure. I think that might be a good question for Rashid or maybe Jean, which is, aside from the Blockstream relayers, if they need to be upgraded, I don't know if there's any impact on the Blockstream smart contracts per se that are already deployed. Like, do they have to be modified or anything? I don't think so, but like, I'm not the best person to answer that question.
I don't think any changes are needed.
Okay. Sounds good. Then after that, like, there's also like the bridge node and stuff, like with or without swap. We can cover swap in a bit. And yeah, like the idea to trigger hard fork activation after a few blobs, do a few measurements. Like, our blobs continue to be submitted by all different 4 or whatever amount of rollup from the RAS partner. And if, you know, are we still continuing to produce blocks? Then Arabica Mocha mainnet, Retool already covered. What I'm going to cover is more like the stakeholder coordination rather than like the timeline or rolling out the software. The CIP stuff is kind of covered already because the specification had went to final. So in terms of like, I think when you look at different kind of partners, like exchanges, you got to assume it, you just look at it from the point of view of like who's running a node, right? And you try to like tackle as many as you possible from like, at least you try to hit 80% of exchanges by volume, just because users get impacted if you don't really coordinate with exchanges. This is normally how hard forks are done, or at least with no exchanges. Some exchanges might surprise you and say that they're not running a full node, and that's a whole other topic. But yeah, with validators, try to capture as many validators, but what I'm interested in is trying to hit 80% of the stake, and what is the set of validators that get to 80% of the stake in terms of like who needs to upgrade. So these are just like coordinating with them to upgrade for mainnet. We'll do the same for Mocha, but you know, Mocha can be relatively easy. There's also custodians, rollups on mainnet. These sort of 15 rollups we have on mainnet, and if they're upgraded, The good thing is, the good news is most of them are using a RAS partner. So if the RAS partner update, is something that like these roll up already in a good shape. And then finally, node operators like Anchor, QuickNode, Alchemy, P2P, Numia, Kepler, Leap Wallet, Cosmos Station, and Selenium, coordinating with all of them. I did add Blockstream mainnet, which are like the relayers and stuff, and the contract, but it sounds like the contract don't need to be upgraded. And then IBC relayers, who's running a relayer, we actually have a role for that in Discord for Celestia for different types of relayer. So actually, there were some few questions that I think will be good for the group. Is for like the core dev, is it a rolling hard fork like during the block space race program, or is it like a Tendermint one where you kind of swap things around? Oh, I'm just saying Via is raised his hand. Hey Via, sorry, I saw that now.
Sorry, it's an issue with Bill. I didn't raise my hand.
I can
okay.
answer, or I could try to answer this question. So the hard fork is going to be, we're going to cut an official release of Celestia App v2.0 and ask all consensus node operators to upgrade. And when they start up their node, they're going to provide a upgrade flag. So that the CLI flag is literally v2-upgrade height. And for each network, that's going to be different, right? For Mocha, it might be 1 million. For Arabica, it might be 2 million. But the idea is all consensus nodes can operate and run the v2 binary ahead of time, ahead of that upgrade height. So they don't actually need to be online like when that upgrade height takes place. But then at the upgrade height, that's when the hard fork kind of happens and we add some new features for v2 and we drop some things that we wanted to delete. Yeah, does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, and the mechanism there is by specifying the block height, the assumption is the feature is already made in that release, and the block height is just to activate the features rather than to, like I heard, like, I've seen some stuff around Cosmo Tendermint base chain where they do like with Cosmo Visor swapping binary, but I don't believe that's the case here, right?
Right, that's not the case for us.
That's good. I appreciate that. Okay, that answered the question. I think now, is there any other comments on Lemongrass before we talk about Schwab, given that Glib is here as well? Okay. I think next up is we want to talk about before we talk about Schwab, Ritul, if I remember correctly, based on your timeline, I think roughly by June 30th, end of this month, like potentially addressing audit finding and maybe cutting a release around then, right? Now going back here, we can talk about Schwab and Glib. If you want to talk about timeline and stuff, and what kind of discussion we had at Celestia Live, feel free to do that. Or I can summarize it, but I think you have the best context.
I can give a overview on that. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Loud and clear.
So yeah, the Schwab is not a consensus breaking update, but it will be a little bit complicated to coordinate because it will break the applications, it will be API breaking, and it will be all the nodes will have to resync as well. And there's multiple problems we have to solve there. So in order to solve them, we will phase out swap in phases. Like there will be in total like 4 phases. Where first one is where we start with an announcement, and it's unclear where exactly the first phase will start. Currently, we mark the date as July the 1st, but depending on the lemongrass, we may move it and push it back a little bit so that we don't have two big updates happening at the same time. That may cause coordination issues and stack bags on each other that will be complicated to resolve. And then we will start deploying after the announcement. In a few weeks, we will step by step deploy the swap on each test network we have, which includes Arabica, which includes Mocha, and then eventually mainnet. And we will give the node operators and application runners a time buffer to upgrade. And we will support 2 basic P2P networks at the same time. Once the new phase starts, the new network gets upgraded, and the previous one drops any support for backwards compatibility. So once the phase ends, application developers are expected to update their software. Otherwise, they will lose the access to the network. But we give the good enough buffer for testnets like 2 weeks and a mainnet like a month for application devs to update. And what's the lemongrass target date?
I think based on Retool note, they're hoping to make a release. We're not talking about mainnet here. For at least for Arabica, the mainnet, the Arabica release, they're hoping to target June 30th, so end of this month, depending on the audit findings and them fixing the audit finding by the time they can make a release by end of June.
And is it going to be like also gradual, like they start with Arabica and then they Mocha and mainnet, right?
Yeah, it'll be Arabica, Mocha, mainnet.
And do we know
and
how
yeah, that's
the time
how long?
spaces
Okay.
in between the tests?
Viet had thoughts about it. Yeah, go ahead, Rutul. Yeah.
I accounted for like 2 weeks on each testnet. So that way we have like a week of the binary running before the upgrade height and then a week after. And then, so for example, 2 weeks on Arabica, 2 weeks on Mocha. That was my guess, but we can expand that if we uncover issues.
I think 2 weeks are good. Yeah, go ahead. Good.
I also think 2 weeks are good. It's something that we will do with Schwab. Like right now, there's still a bit of a question. How do we roll it out together? Like the simplest thing to do would be just, okay, once Lemongrass is in mainnet, we can start doing all the Schwab stuff. That will be the simplest thing, but it will delay Schwab significantly. And I ideally would avoid that. Maybe we can do it like, okay, Lemongrass has finished testing on Arabica. Then like a few days after we start the swap on Arabica. And the same goes for every test network. So they like Mocha and mainnet. So they like overlap a little bit, but still each testnet is not overlapping. And what do you think of that? Would it be too much?
No, I think this is more reasonable because I was kind of thinking about that the same. Because like let's say when Lemongrass orchestrate the hard work on Arabica, it's running, the core dev is satisfied, they're like, okay, now let's move on to Mocha. By then, like we can coordinate swap on Arabica while we wait, so that at least you can get some testing done before that. And like it's just like given that it's like these are 2 major changes, one on the consensus side and DA side, like the idea is just to try to make sure not to do them both at the same time at the same network, just because it's not really tested. Like I was talking to Retool, at least on the Robusta side for Core app, they're not testing it with Swap, which is fine because they're focused on Lemongrass specifically. But I think this works good for like once we finish the testnet and Lemongrass coordination move to the next testnet or mainnet, you can start with like coordinating on Swap and stuff.
That's good. Thank you. And I also have another question. Like we can say that this part is confirmed, and the next question is, it comes back to the point on backwards compatibility. So by default, the swap is again is breaking and very breaking, but we still want to support backwards compatibility, and we solve that by infrastructure rather than software. So there will be a point where we will be running both versions at the same time. So like our infrastructure will be running old software and new software so that both worlds, the historical protocol and the new protocol can live together. And so we give time for application developers to update. And the question is, can we ask the community, and particularly those who are in the delegation program, to run bridge nodes for some short period of time for both versions, like the old version and the new version?
Yeah, I think we can specify that if we can just maybe async, if you provide what the version numbers and stuff, we can coordinate with the validator
sure.
under the delegation program and what is exactly required of them. Given it's a short period of time, I think it's more than okay.
Cool. I have no more questions. Like the plan seems to be pretty clear. Anyone has questions, I can also clarify that, or we can move on.
Yeah. Anyone has question to Glib about Schwab? Nope. You guys can expect, and the whole community can expect, more like blog posts and information about both upgrades, like in a digestible manner for the public. As we get closer to the end of June. I know that now, I'm not sure if there's any CIP currently being proposed. I'm not sure what's happening with the ZK working group, or the canonical API CIP or others. If we have a call for next week, I guess the only update we got to talk about would be any findings from the informal audits, right, Ritul? I'm not sure about any other CIPs being proposed at the moment that we can cover in this call.
Yeah, I feel like Callum briefly talked about the authored blobs one in the previous call. So, and also I don't see him anymore. So we don't need to talk about it now. I will say for the informal audit findings, we might need to wait 2 weeks for them to like give us back stuff to review here. So maybe anyway.
So do you guys want to push the CIP call, given that there are no CIPs? I mean, yeah, Colin has one, but given that we're just focused on the audits right now, unless there's some new CIPs, I would just propose we push back the call 1 month, given there's not a lot of things to cover while we're waiting for audits and there's no new CIP topics to cover for the time being. I'm not sure. I'd rather get feedback from everyone about this. What do you guys think? Or I mean, like, if you guys want to talk every 2 weeks, that's fine with me as well. I'm just kind of concerned if there's no topic for in 2 weeks' time, and we're just waiting on audits and there's no CIPs. There might not be much to cover. Is all. Take silence to mean yes, unless it means no. We want to stick to 2 weeks' time.
I think it's a yes.
All right. Okay, cool. Modular Carver, I think for the next call, CIP 13, let's push it back to 1 month from now, like 4 weeks from now.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. If you have more question about the CIP, go to the forum post, but the one right now for like Lemongrass CIP is already final in Schwab. If you guys want to talk about existing new CIPs in you can go to the forum and we can continue discussion. With that said, thank you so much. Looking forward to the hard fork and to the informal audits, and take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.